5 eras of human history, worst to be born into, counting down from bad to almost unthinkable. Number 5 first. Number 5. The last ice age, roughly 20,000 years ago. Massive ice sheets, kilometers thick in places, buried huge stretches of Europe and North America, and the world outside them wasn't much gentler. You woke up every single day to the same 3 enemies: cold that could kill you in your sleep, food that took hours of tracking and still might get away, and predators that saw perfectly well in conditions where you barely saw at all. There was no room for a bad decision. A twisted ankle on the wrong terrain, a fire that went out at the wrong moment, and that was it. But here's the thing that keeps this one at number 5 instead of higher. It was consistent, brutal, but predictable. Everyone around you had the same tools, the same knowledge, the same expectations passed down for generations. The danger never let up, but at least you knew its shape. Number 4. Before fire was tamed. Push back even further. Before humans figured out how to control flame at all, and you lose the one thing that made the Ice Age survivable in the first place. No circle of firelight. No safe radius predators wouldn't cross. When the sun went down, you did what every other primate on the savanna did. You climbed something, or you found a crack in the rock, and you froze in place until morning. Moving at night meant becoming food, because your eyes were useless in the dark compared to whatever was hunting you. Leopards, hyenas, wolves, all of them could see you perfectly while you couldn't see your own hand. This isn't Ice Age hardship. This is a world with no invented advantage at all, where the only strategy against the dark was to disappear into stillness and hope nothing found you. Number 3. The Mongol invasions, 13th century. If you saw a line of riders on the horizon in this era, you had minutes, not days, before your entire world stopped existing. Genghis Khan and his successors built the largest contiguous land empire ever assembled, from the Pacific coast of China to the edges of Eastern Europe, using mounted archers who could hit a target at a full gallop, from further away than most of their enemies could even see clearly. Entire cities that resisted were erased, not damaged, erased, as a deliberate strategy to make the next city surrender without a fight. Historians estimate the conquest killed somewhere close to 10% of the entire population of the world at the time, a number that's almost impossible to hold in your head, because the total population back then was already so small. If you were born inside the path of that empire, none of your skills mattered. Your fate was decided by which valley you happened to be born in. Number 2. The Black Death, 1347 to 1353. Europe got an unscheduled delivery from Central Asia, riding in on fleas that lived on rats that lived on cargo ships, and within a handful of years, entire regions had been gutted. Caused by a bacterium nobody could see or understand, it moved through a shared cup, a handshake, a breath in the wrong room. The symptoms were fast and grotesque: swollen lymph nodes, fever, bleeding under the skin, death sometimes within days of the first ache. Historians estimate somewhere between a third and half of Europe's entire population died in this single stretch. Whole villages simply emptied out. Trade routes, economies, entire social structures that had taken centuries to build collapsed inside one generation. And medicine's answer to all of it was doctors in long leather coats and beaked masks stuffed with flowers, because the actual cause wouldn't be understood for another 500 years. If you were born into this window, your odds weren't about strength or wealth or skill. They were closer to a coin flip. And number 1. The Columbian Exchange, 16th century Americas. This is the one people underestimate the most, because it doesn't look like a war in the traditional sense. When European ships began arriving in the Americas, they brought smallpox, measles, and influenza, diseases the indigenous population had never been exposed to, and had zero biological defense against. There was no gradual buildup of immunity across generations the way there had been in Europe and Asia. It just arrived, all at once, into populations with no resistance whatsoever. Across the following decades, entire civilizations, some of them larger and more organized than most European cities of the time, lost up to 90% of their people. Not 10%, not half, 9 out of every 10. Cities that had stood for centuries emptied out faster than anyone could record what was happening to them. If you were born into an indigenous community in the Americas in this window, the odds were not survival versus death for you individually. The odds were that almost everyone you had ever known would be gone within your own lifetime, and the world you were born into simply would not exist by the time you were old enough to understand what had happened happened to it. And yet, somewhere inside every single one of those windows, someone kept going. Someone outlasted the ice. Someone survived the dark before fire. Someone lived through the empire that erased their neighbors, the plague that erased their village, the exchange that erased their entire world. You are only here, right now, reading this because an unbroken chain of people refused to be the last link, over and over again, at the worst possible moments to be alive. You didn't earn that, you just inherited it. Nobody hands you a choice about which chapter you're born into. You just open your eyes into whatever's waiting, the same as she did in the dirt, with no idea what century she'd handed you into either.